This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional medical advice or be a substitute for therapy. Please contact a mental health professional as needed. If you are needing urgent or emergency health care, contact your mental health provider, call 911, or go to your nearest emergency room. The information presented in this podcast also does not reflect the opinions of those with whom we may be affiliated, both past and present.
Wow, here we are. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Mark.
We've been talking about doing this for a long time, talking about codependency, people-pleasing, perfectionism, lying, which I consider part of it. And, today I think we just want to talk about why we're here, what we hope to accomplish, and give a little bit of background. What do you think?
On the very first episode of I Wish I Had the Balls. And I remember you telling me a while ago, Laura, I really want to start this podcast, but I don't know. What do you think of the name? And I was like hysterical because I'm like, only a New Yorker could get away with that name.
Yeah. And you know where that name came from? I was, to give you the background, which is kind of why we're here today, is Thanksgiving 2 years ago, I was in the midst of a real tentative business relationship with someone who was, I don't want to blame them, but, they really piqued my codependency, and I don't want to make it about them either. And we were on a cruise for Thanksgiving and my daughter's birthday, and I spent a lot of the time in the cabin walking in circles, just feeling like the weight of the world and that anxiety and that all that crap. And I was texting with a friend who had been, her and her husband weren't invited to a family Thanksgiving, but everyone else was. And I said, and I texted her and I said, why don't you guys just show up? And she wrote back and she said, yeah, right. And I said, don't you wish you had the balls?
Oh, that's perfect.
And she said, yeah, I do. She's a Long Islander. Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, I do. And, so that's kind of where that came from. But, I thought I had dealt with my codependency and my people pleasing and all that bullshit years ago. But, it didn't take long for somebody to get my number and for that to all come up for me. And it's horrible. And it's horrible on one hand. On the other hand, it's given me so much insight into my past, my history. And when I showed up for treatment 20 years ago and they said, why are you here? Well, when they asked me, why are you here? I said, well, occasionally I take more than prescribed. That's why I'm here.
Which usually means, by the way, you're taking 5 times more than you're prescribed every single day. Let's just
A 1,000%. Yeah. Every addict, every alcoholic, when asked that question, has an equation in their head about what an acceptable answer is. It's like, how many people have you slept with? If it's 12 or less, it's always 12. But if it's more, you divide by 2, then multiply by something, and you come up with this convoluted answer. But yeah, I remember being in a psychiatrist's office and him asking me how many Adderalls do I take a day, and I'm trying to gauge like what will be his reaction. So I cut it like in a third, and I said 7, and he almost fell out of his seat. And I was like, oh, maybe I should have said less. But anyway, yeah, but if I were going to treatment today and they said, why are you here? It'd be eating disorder. It would be codependency, low self-esteem, childhood trauma. And by the way, I deal with those things by taking a shitload of Adderall, drinking at night, binge eating,
whatever the symptom happens to be, the symptom that is really just the surface level problem. Yeah. As you were saying, it's the underlying stuff that's really the problem. And a lot of times, and you know this from being in this field for so long, people are only dealing with the surface saying, I got it under control. I'm sober now. I'm not drinking. But my opinion about this, that if you haven't done therapy and you're not looking underneath, you're only dry. You're not sober. Yeah. No matter what your addiction happens to be.
Yeah, you've made the check engine light go off for now.
Right.
But it's going to come back. And so I'm in this situation a year ago, and every text I get from this person, every phone call, it creates a complete panic. If I see a text from them late at night, I know I'm not sleeping. Mm-hmm. I'm up at 3 a.m. trying to think of solutions, trying to think of, I'm going to make this person like me. If I were just a better person, they would like me, if, think this would be going better. And it's complete bullshit. And, if I think back out through my whole life, I've thought that too, with family members, where I've said, even with my own sister, years ago, when before she got married, I think she was going through a tough time. And I remember thinking that if I were a better person, she'd be happier. And that better person means having more money so I could buy her the life she wants. And, you just get caught up in this stuff. And the truth is we're just powerless over everything, right? I mean, just, people are going to be. And for me, it has been an ongoing journey to learn how to, I want to say care a little bit less, but I do care. That's kind of the problem, right? I mean, I do care. I do want other people to be happy. If I'm being really honest, I'll say, you know what? I don't need you to be happy. I need me to be happy, and I'm unhappy, and I don't want to be unhappy getting over. This is a great meme I see, and I've sent it to a lot of moms who I work with, and it says, you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep your kid warm because they refuse to wear a jacket.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah.
I love that one. I think everything that we're talking about, obviously whatever happened to us in childhood, our childhood programming, we're looking at generational stuff, right? Because, and I don't know your parents, but I know my parents. And, the stuff that I deal with on a daily basis, or the issues that I've struggled with, I see how they were transmitted very early on. Yeah. And it's not that people are doing it to you, but it's all that they know. So how can they teach you any different?
Correct. And you don't know my parents, but you hit the nail on the head. And it's not just my parents; it's my parents' parents and their parents.
Exactly, it goes for a long, long time. And so, anybody who goes into therapy or who recognizes that there's an issue and is like, "I need to get treatment for this," now you're breaking the cycle. But as you can see, I mean, I'm still working on things that I started working on probably when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. So if you were to really define codependency, what would your definition be? Because it's been liquefied in the media, to anybody who wants to please someone else, even in a healthy way, is, oh, you're codependent.
Right. And I think if you're prone to codependency, then you do have to ask yourself that question: what is my motivation? Am I genuinely wanting to help this person, or what am I getting from it? Because I believe that nobody does anything unless they get something from it, right? I mean, even parents who buy their kids drugs, and that happens all the time, or someone that is a spouse that's hiding their husband's drinking or whatever, there is a reward they are getting for it. So what are you getting for it? And I do have to ask myself that. Why am I reaching out to this person because I genuinely want to help them, or is it because it gives me that hit of dopamine, or am I buying this gift for somebody because I think I'm going to get all this recognition and I'm going to be the hero, and it's going to, I'm going to get this drug, this outside approval. But for me, my definition is that if I were a better person, other people would be happier. That's my definition.
Damn. So the problem with that is, how do you even define better? And I have to say, I'm kind of like internally laughing, because I remember going through this period in high school and into college when my perfectionism was probably at an all-time high, where I would chastise myself at the end of the day. I would keep a running list of all the things that I felt that I did wrong, that I felt I said wrong, that I hadn't been the nicest person that I could have been. And I remember making a vow to myself every day: I need to be a nicer person. I'm going to be a nicer person. Yeah. And so I never thought about it as codependency. I never thought about it as, well, why do I want to do that? Like, what's my motivation? But now I'm thinking about that. I still don't exactly know my motivation, except probably if I felt that I was being perfect, I wouldn't have to worry about a lot of other things.
Well, yes. I mean, I think what's behind it is fear, because if I'm perfect, you can't criticize me.
Right. Or you can, but I can brush it off easier, because I know I'm perfect.
Right.
So the problem must be you.
Must be you. You can point the finger in another direction. And there's another thing for me too, lying. And I'm not a liar. I'm a pretty honest person. But when you do get caught up in that codependent situation where you feel like that other person is they're just waiting to pounce, you do this analysis where if I tell them the truth, they're going to pounce. If I lie to them, it buys me a little bit of a reprieve till they find out the truth.
Sure.
So there's that too, like, oh yeah, that's taken care of, or, I've handled that or whatever. But then ultimately it's just the best thing to do. And there's so much talk now about, and all these things are interconnected. I like to say that all these things we get calls about, addiction, trauma, codependency, depression, anxiety, ADD, symptoms of autism. They're all a different slice of the pizza, right? It's the same pizza, it's the same pie, but it's all different slices. And for me, I can be any one of these slices on any given. I could be OCD, anxious, perfect, on any one of these days. But one of the things that's connected to that, and we're hearing so much about, and it's probably blown out of proportion at this point.
Like everything is in our culture right now.
Once it gains some momentum is narcissism. Mm-hmm. You can diagnose anyone as a narcissist now. Like of course, including myself, which, a little bit, we all are, I guess, but but when you do come across a toxic person, what would you do differently? And I think that the best that you can hope for is that early warning. When I got involved with this person, my senses were ringing off the hook.
Oh, so you knew?
Oh God, yeah. I just didn't know how to get out of it. I was just, and in my mind, I'll compensate, I'll work harder, I'll make it work, that won't matter, I'll win them over, all this bullshit.
Damn, that's painful.
And in hindsight, early on, before any real money was spent, I should have went to our third partner and said, this is not going to work. And I'll tell you why. And I'm out. I'm not going to do this.
So I love doing like somatic kind of work. So when those alarm bells are going off in your body, where do you feel it? And I know this podcast is called I Wish I Had the Balls, but be clean here. So
Yeah. Well, a little north of there in my gut, just everything. I feel insecure. I feel I would lose my ability to communicate clearly. Mm-hmm. It was a struggle for me to find words to explain. And
so that's a full body experience.
Oh yeah. Sleeplessness, the tasting the ass. I mean, I remember one Sunday, kind of well into the situation where I'm out walking the dog, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. This is gonna kill me. This is. And I remember thinking, this is. I'm not gonna let this kill me, but it could. And remember making a decision at that point that any communication coming from this person henceforth will be negative. Do not expect anything different.
So it was resetting your mindset of what this person was capable of and what you knew was going to be happening anytime you talk to them.
Yeah. So instead of me saying, I hope it's different this time, or setting a different expectation, my assumption is the next text, the next phone call is going to be berating. It's going to be, and they weren't so overt. They were very, and they were a smart person too. They were charming. They were smart. They were good looking. They were, said and done all the right things. Mm-hmm. So it was a slow,
smooth, very smooth,
very smooth.
And that's why narcissists can be so dangerous.
Yeah,
because before you know it, they've integrated themselves into your life and to your psyche.
Yeah.
And the destruction just starts right away. I think I've talked to you about this and I've said it in the podcast. I know right away now when I'm dealing with a narcissist. But as soon as they open their mouth, even when I look at them, I feel a pit of rage right here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Rage.
Yeah.
And I'm not a rageful person,
right.
but I feel it here where
Right.
I'm like getting so pissed off.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm not an angry person either, but I will tell you that I treated other people during this time in a way that I would not like, that I hope they will forgive me. I likened it to being in a bad marriage where,
Sure.
you have an abusive spouse and you're taking it out on the kids. And I feel badly for that because I acted in a way that I wouldn't want to act. But yeah, I would be talking to this person and I'm people pleasing them. Oh yeah. Oh great. Wonderful. In my mind, I'm literally thinking, I hope this person has an aneurysm and drops dead in front of me. Because I want to fucking kill him. And that's the truth, right?
That's the rage.
You're angry.
That's the rage. But I
so
often wonder,
pissed.
is the rage is not yours or mine. I think it's a projection from them that underneath the good guy, good girl persona, they have tons of their own stuff there that I think they're just dumping on you.
Yeah. No, they are. And that's true. And I don't want to discount the fact that they've had their own personal experiences where that have gotten them there today.
Sure.
And I'm sure that's a journey and I'm sure they're working on it. And I just don't have to be part of that.
Right.
I can't afford to be part of that. I can't.
Not if you think you're going to die.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
think about it that way, that you were in a circumstance where you're like, I may die from this.
Yeah.
That's dramatic.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you hear that from your clients all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard it from my mom yesterday. Mm-hmm. Hasn't slept, hasn't eaten, they've spent all their money on treatment, and yet their 33-year-old son is still upstairs, locked in his room, playing video games and telling them to go fuck themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But going back to the early warning is that I think we can become adept at recognizing this early and saying, backing off. This is not a relationship for me.
And so if you're involved with someone, intimately involved with someone, whether you're in a relationship with them or business partnership, or maybe it's someone you work with, it can be very difficult to distance yourself, someone you're co-parenting with, whatever it happens to be. Some people you just can't walk away from.
It's not an option.
Right. Yeah. So in your experience, what have you found works for you? Because I'm hoping that people take something out of this and they're like, first of all, they may recognize themselves and then be like, man, I got to work on this because I didn't realize that this was going to kill me.
Yeah. I was very fortunate in that my loss was strictly financial, in that I could say, I'm going to blow this thing up, which ultimately I did. I went to the third partner and said, this isn't working and I can't do it anymore. And then shortly after that, we got out of the arrangement, but I still had my family intact, right? I still had the people that love me and my friends and my health and all of that. But there are people in situations where the abuser is the breadwinner and they have the power, and you have kids and and the consequences are much, much deeper. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say, well, you should just leave.
Right.
Because you can't.
Sometimes it's not possible.
Yeah, you can pray for their death, though. You can do that.
I think we're okay with that, right? We're okay with that.
Yeah. That's between you and your God.
Right. But I think the thing that's really interesting is, first of all, when we're talking about narcissism, I think what's fascinating, and I don't want to blame the victim. However, we do have to look at patterns and dynamics.
Right.
That every narcissist needs what's called an echoist.
Needs their supply,
right? So you have to make a decision at some point that you're not going to be that supply. And that's why you and I have joked about this also, particularly like in the dating world, they always come back. Like the narcissists, they always come back because they're always looking to see if they can like recapture that supply.
Right. And like addicts, they are very good at getting what they need.
Cunning.
Yeah, very cunning. So I would come to this mindset that I'm out, I'm done, I'm not getting, they're getting none of my energy. and then they would be charming. You know,
and doesn't that make you question yourself?
Yeah.
Like, oh, maybe this person's really nice. Maybe I was wrong about them. Or, maybe we can move forward from here. And then you're like, damn it.
A narcissist will make you question your own insanity.
Absolutely.
And I've seen this, and I've seen it in my own life when I was still drinking and using, how crazy my behavior made my wife. And she was not normally a crazy person in that way.
Right.
You know, not normally an angry, out of control person, but your behaviors it gets all over people. And, but you know, when you can get out, you got to get, I mean, you got to be true to yourself. I mean, I think the bottom line here is that, you know, I'm not so sure I want anything or any situation in my life anymore where someone can take it away from me. You know, they can hold me hostage, but if you don't do this, then there's that, or any kind of thing. And I was thinking this last night because I am in a little bit of a negotiation with something now, but I'm handling it amazingly well. I mean, number one, I'm getting distance, perspective. I'm not responding to the situation immediately. I'm going to take my time.
I have to tell you, I knew you in the past situation. I know you in this situation. You are handling things very differently. You are much less dysregulated than you were last time, much less anxious. Like, I could see the anxiety just pouring out of you. Like, you didn't really, it was almost paralyzing. Like, you didn't know which way to turn.
I was sweating it out like garlic.
Yeah. But the approach that you have right now, you're very empowered. I don't know if you're recognizing that.
Thank you. And that means a ton to me. It means a lot to me. I think I was thinking last night, I'm probably going to lose this negotiation. But I know if I stay in it and accept what's being put in front of me, I'll be angry, resentful. I won't be acting within the spirit of which I'm here. And I don't want that.
And chipping away at your own self-worth, right? When we give in to other people and accept less than what we are worth, I think that feeds into any self-esteem or self-confidence issues that we're still dealing with. Like, I'm going to accept less?
Yeah.
I think I'm less? Damn, that just undoes the work that I've been doing on myself for 25 years.
Right. And then for me to act like I have no choice but to just take this. It's not true, and it will it will hurt. There will be a hurt there, not not just to me, but to my girls. But we'll be okay. You know, I mean, it's definitely going to cut into my Starbucks and peanut butter funds, but and my expensive lifetime membership. But hey. Look, you know.
Listen, I cut my membership a long time ago. I feel you.
Yeah, but you still kept the
I kept the cup because I want people to think that I still go to Lifetime.
Right.
Yeah, so why not?
Yeah, I mean, if you walk around in a black workout outfit and yoga wear, people will think you're working at Equinox.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. If I have the Lululemon tag sticking out, we're good.
Yeah.
And again, that feeds right into it is why do you have to play that role? But we're kind of tongue in cheek. We're kind of joking about all of this. Right. But I think, what's important for the purpose of this podcast is to really, be able to help people recognize what are the patterns that they have established in their lives.
Right.
Are they happy?
Right.
Like, if someone's going to be watching this podcast, they must have some questions about their life.
Yeah, and I hope that if they are watching this podcast and when they saw the description, they said, "Oh my God, I feel that way," or that resonated with them, and they hit play, and they're feeling they're getting a little reprieve. They're feeling like I have a little bit more ability to handle this, not necessarily because we've imparted such great knowledge or the magic pill on them, but because they know they're not alone out there.
Right. Isn't there power in numbers?
That. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's so interesting because we're in a time in our culture right now where there is an epidemic of oversharing. right, on TikTok and whatever. But some of the most important things people just don't talk to each other about.
Yeah.
And to me, those seem to be the things that we should be discussing because we really could help each other.
Yeah. I mean, I have a theory that the people that's easiest to connect with quickly are the people you don't know. You get on an airplane, you sit down next to someone, they tell you their life story, you tell them their life, but you don't have any responsibility to that person. You're never going to see them again. So the connection can be instant.
Right. So we should talk about how we connected.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So we connected, gosh, when I first moved down to Florida, Mark and I actually were at a site visit for a treatment facility. Is it in Delray?
I think it's Lake Worth or whatever.
Lake Worth, whatever. Is it still there?
It may be. It's a big brand.
It's a big brand.
A commercialized brand.
Right.
It's not necessarily.
Right. But Mark was there with some other people, and I just remember thinking, Mark Cantor, I know that name because I hear that name all over the place. And then I was able to put a face to the name, and then I don't know how we kept talking. We just kept running into each other somehow.
And then we reconnected about, what, 2 years, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. We had lunch, and it was funny because the person who took me on that tour was like, "Oh, Dr. Ellick's coming," and I didn't know who you were, but they made you out to be like this really big special person, which you are.
Ooh, lovely.
You are
I
a very
like that.
special person. So, I was not. I may have had like my good behavior on that day. My I am a professional. I shall not. But then once I got to know you, I started to know you as a real person. And
I am a real person. And we're fellow Long Islanders,
Yes.
and there's a connection there that you just can't erase.
You can't. And, there's no more real than Long Island or New York.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
I think so, too. So we are two Long Islanders who are trying to survive in South Florida, which is
The sixth borough of New York.
exactly, and it's a really interesting community. And
It is interesting.
we're really in the same circle because if you do any work in addictions, you see the same people over and over and over.
It is a small community.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, it's a small. Even nationally, like people say, "Oh, do you know so and so?" And I'm like, yeah, they're in California, they're in Utah, whatever. But yeah, I know them.
Or if you don't, you'll know someone who does know someone.
Yeah. We're this is definitely even closer. This is what is it? 6 degrees.
This is like 2 degrees of separation. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
You know what it could be? It could be like 3 degrees of Terry Shapiro. You always
He knows everybody.
He knows you're always 2 degrees away from Terry Shapiro. I was in the Galapagos Islands doing an intervention a couple of years ago, and I was there alone. I'm waiting this kid out, and I see these 3 American women, and they were on my plane. I recognized them from the plane in the morning, the small flight from
Quito or whatever,
from Quito to the Galapagos, San Cristobal, and so I went over and I said, "I think you're on my plane," and I'm all alone. We're talking. So they, "What are you doing here?" And I tell them what I'm doing there. I'm here to find this guy that's, get him to treatment. And they said, "Oh, well, we sent a family member to treatment and blah, blah, blah. And we're from Chicago. And there was a guy that helped us, but I think he lives in Florida." I said, "Terry Shapiro." And they go, "Yeah, how do you know?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Oh, that's a riot.
Of course. Who else would it be?
Who else would it be?
Yeah, that'd be him. So
right.
So that'll be the new thing. Right?
That'll be the new thing.
That'll be the new board game. But I want to say that I hope, to be honest with you, that this podcast accomplishes a few things. One, if it in any way makes somebody else feel better, phenomenal. I love it. 2, if it makes me feel better, even better. It gives me the power. If it helps me to grow, wonderful, and you, and hopefully we'll get some good content out of it, and really just maybe practice what we preach.
Absolutely, because it's always about staying accountable to yourself too, which can be super challenging.
Yeah.
So before we wrap, any last words, any parting words? First of all, the podcast name is hysterical. We're
Right.
going to be calling it The Balls,
The
because
Balls,
it's
yeah.
just, you can't not call it that.
Yeah, I tried to get the Balls website, and it was available for $19, but with a service charge of $20,000 because it's a premium name. But,
Okay.
But so I was like, yeah, no, we're not going to.
So if there's an angel investor out there who wants to go ahead and invest in that name, we're up for it.
Yeah, could be a really good website, but I was able to get IwishIHadTheBalls.com, which is a little convoluted, but okay. You know.
I love it. So do you want to give a shout out to the person who made the shirts?
I do. I want to give a shout out to my friend Stacy, who made the shirts. Her company is called Board Rebel, and she's got her own great story about having faced burnout and that I don't know what to do with my life and coming up with this. And she's been all kinds of huge successful, and she's done wonderful in terms of public relations and being on the news and being picked by Washington Business Journal as someone to watch and everything. So huge shout out to her for that. And I think I want to get more shirts, but I think I want the font to be a little bit bigger. I don't want to say I want the balls to be bigger, but perhaps maybe.
But do you have the balls to go bigger?
We do.
We're going to play with this name the entire time. But I have to just say, Stacy, this is by far the most comfortable shirt that I have ever worn. And I have like all kinds of texture issues and tags and stuff like that. This shirt is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so comfortable.
Check it out. Board Rebel. Check it out.
Board Rebel. See, here we are. Board Rebel.
So
I think that wraps it up.
It does wrap it up.
Our very first episode of I Wish I Had the Balls.
I wish I had the balls. And this was so much fun. I really am so comfortable with you. You're so good at this.
It's fun. We bounce off each other.
We do.
I mean, half the stuff we can't say on camera, but you have to have some sort of fun in the person that you're co-hosting with, because otherwise.
And in life, if it's not fun. Yeah. Don't. If it's torture, don't do it. I mean, maybe that's the final word. If you feel like you're in full flight anxiety, maybe you're going down the wrong path. Maybe you're
time to make a change.
Time to make a change.
So, guys, remember to follow us on Apple, Spotify. We're going to put this on YouTube too, right?
Sure.
We're going to put this on YouTube. So wherever you get your podcast, don't forget to give it a 5-star review on Apple, because when we get to 100 reviews, the magic happens.
Right.
And we'll see you on the next episode of
I Wish I Had the Balls.
Awesome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.